Our two panels have reconvened, and we'll start again in rebuttal 5 minutes with some announcements at 2 minutes, and or 1 to 2 minutes and 1 minute, so on. And we'll start again with the pros.
The final presentation too, right?
Like, are you going to see all those points, or can I have one of your points?
I just want my points there.
Okay, can I mention one of your points for 1 second?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
As long as we can come back to it. Okay, so what I heard in that second part of that debate was a lot of, well, we can control it with this, or well, it's labeled as that. The whole point of regulating e-cigarettes is that they're not. They can really say it's 4 milligrams when it's 400 milligrams, and nobody would be any the wiser. Of course, they haven't killed anybody yet, but who's to say it won't happen soon? Or who's to say it won't happen in the next couple of years when all the carcinogens that have been added to increase that nicotine absorption don't come up and cause cancer in the future. One of the points that one of the other team members made was, in IV drug users, you wouldn't give somebody a dirty needle. You would supply them with a clean needle, which I wholeheartedly agree with. But in this case, you don't even know if the freaking needle is clean itself, so why would you hand it to them and claim that it's going to be a safer alternative? They also claim that $2 to $10 million loss would happen if they were further regulated. That said, I know a lot of drug companies that spend way more than that to try and get their nicotine replacement therapies to market, Chantix themselves. And that would be a big problem if the industry was only worth a couple million, but the top company, Blue e-cigarettes alone, is worth $135 million. So to say these people are going to be hurting their pocketbooks because they lose all of maybe 1 to 1.5% of their profit is ridiculous at best. So e-cigarettes, they claim that they don't have tobacco or tar, and shoot, that might not even be true either because we don't know if the label matches what's really in there, but an FDA Division of Pharmaceutical Analysis, which we all love the FDA here, right? Good guys. Part of the agency's Center for Drug Evaluation and Research, they've analyzed that the ingredients in a small sample of cartridges from the 2 leading brands of e-cigarettes found to have diethylene glycol, which is also used in antifreeze, and several other samples were found to contain carcinogens, which are, of course, cancer-causing substances. Finally, they said that you can control the amount of nicotine that you have with the doctor's advice. But no doctor is ever going to recommend an e-cigarette, and I don't think I've ever recommended one myself personally. Once again, we operate based on Western medicine, and Western medicine is based upon science. Now, if there's no science to cover something, how are we ever going to be able to recommend that to our patients in good faith, knowing that we aren't going to cause any trouble for them? My final point is, how many people here remember learning about thalidomide? Thalidomide was a medication released for over-the-counter use in Germany in the 1950s. It was for pregnancy-induced nausea and vomiting. And at one point, the German government had reassurance from manufacturers that this medication was going to be safe for mothers to use to find brief relief from their suffering. Instead, there was over 10,000 cases of phocomelia developed. There was fissures in infants' skulls, there was palsy disorder of the face, there was GI and urinary disorders, complete loss of figuring of sight, and missing limbs. Those were missed when thalidomide was approved as a medication. So how are we going to know the long-term effects of cigarettes aren't going to have some other detrimental effects to our health? Thank you.
Okay. Another point that was made earlier was that you can buy e-cigarettes with no nicotine in it because they'll say it on the packaging as part of the step-down program that they were talking about before. That's not even really talked about. But can you trust an unregulated product to actually have no nicotine in it when they don't necessarily have to be truthful what they write down? They don't always accurately label the amount of nicotine in their products. 65 compounds found in e-cigarettes. Aerosols, 26 are listed in FDA-established list of harmful and potentially harmful substances.
Okay, and then you also mentioned it as a smoking cessation agent, that they can be used for people that currently smoke. However, it's actually not FDA approved as a smoking cessation agent. And as of December 2013, e-cigarette manufacturers never applied to the FDA, so it's not currently approved for smoking cessation aid. And so therefore you can't actually recommend it legally as a smoking cessation agent.
Finally, I want to say there's legislation in place in many different countries across the world. In fact, Brazil, Singapore, and Uruguay have all put in measures that are whole countrywide measures to ban e-cigarettes because, once again, we don't have the information that's needed yet. It's not to say it might potentially be non-harmful, but there's legislation even in this very classroom that you're not allowed to use e-cigarettes on campus. Now, I don't know about you guys, but the people at Wayne State are very smart, and I think they would know that until we know better, it's not worth the risk.
Now, we'll hear from the con side.
Okay, so a lot of their previous argument was about the e-cigarettes being marketed towards younger age due to their flavors and so on and so forth. However, there's clearly e-cigs that have no flavor additives at all, and they're marketed at the same places you'd buy the ones that do have flavoring. And I don't know about you guys, but for example, gum, let's say. When I go to buy a pack of gum, I like to see different flavors, right? Whether or not I am 4 years old or 14 or 24, it doesn't really matter. The more variety you have, the better. And essentially what's going to get people to stay away from the different flavors of cigarettes would be different flavors of alternatives. So you see what I'm saying? It's a lot easier to view the cessation technique as opposed to why we keep them geared towards just smoking an e-cig. Now, they keep bringing up the fact that you don't know how much nicotine is in these e-cigs. However, not only is it clearly labeled on the packaging that might not be FDA approved, but so there's a lot of things that aren't FDA approved essentially for smoking cessation. Meditation is not FDA approved for smoking cessation, yet a lot of people do it and a lot of people find it helpful. Essentially, if you find faith in God, prayer is not FDA approved, but a lot of people still do it, and a lot of people find an aid in terms of drawing them away from these cigarettes and essential health defects. So just to bring that up.
Okay, one of the points was that e-cigarettes in comparison one-on-one with conventional cigarettes are just as harmful, if not potentially even more. And I disagree with that. There is data on the health consequences of chronic nicotine exposure, which gum, lozenges, patches, and e-cigarettes would all fall into this category. There is data available from studies in prolonged users of nicotine replacement products, and these data do not suggest that chronic exposure increases cardiopulmonary or cancer risk. So claiming that, lumping them into the same category as a one-on-one comparison that e-cigarettes are more harmful is not founded as an argument. A lot more data needs to be studied in clinical trials. And also another point, in a personal opinion, is that involving more government regulation with products that are used out of more of like personal habits, to me is a very slippery slope and could set precedents for other products or similar products in the future, which people may not be for then.
And then I'd also like to say that a large part of their argument was that the e-cigarettes are finding their ways to youth, in which case many states have, now this is federal regulation that we're talking about, many states at the state level prohibit sale to persons under the age of 18, such as Colorado, New York, Connecticut. So if the state level would take more control of e-cigarettes, then we could easily address the issue of e-cigarettes being used by youth instead of having to go to the federal level.
So I want to go back to the nicotine versus just an electronic cigarette. The nicotine in a electronic cigarette versus the nicotine you get from a regular cigarette. The other one is burned and you get over 4,000 toxins and carcinogens. While the FDA studies, there was one study done by the FDA that actually showed there are about a couple or a few hundred of, less than a few hundred actually, of carcinogens or toxins in general in electronic cigarette, which puts us into huge difference. There's no comparison between the two in regard to toxicity and carcinogens. I want to bring another point. From a social stand, a person who smokes electronic cigarette will have no smoke smell, don't have to go out every once in a while to smoke. They can just do it in a place where they are. There's no ash. You have like freedom to, like I said, smoke anywhere. social impact where like your peers will smell you, smell like smoke, while with this one you have actually probably smell better because of this good smell flavor that you probably want to stay. But
Yeah, there's variety in smell too. Like air fresheners. They're all good, right?
there's not enough research to be with or against, but as of right now, it's better than regular cigarettes.
Well, let's thank both of our panelists.